Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to simplify the expression sine 2x all raised to the fourth using half angle formulas and power reduction formulas. And these are the formulas that we're going to use when we simplify the expression. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite sine 2x to the fourth as sine 2x squared times sine 2x squared. This is the same thing as raising something to the fourth, just like x squared times x squared is equivalent to x to the fourth. I'm just splitting it into two squares. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the half angle formula to replace these expressions in here. So this is how we're going to use the half angle formulas. If I have sine of 2x, and I want to write it using half angle formulas, I'm going to have to write it as sine 4x divided by 2, because that would be how I split it in half to get 2x. And so I'm going to consider a in my formula as 4x. So I'm going to replace sine of 2x with sine of 4x over 2 and use half angle formulas. So I'm going to have, in parentheses, plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine 4x all over 2, and that's squared. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the next one, the square root of 1 minus cosine 4x all over 2 squared. So I just replaced sine of 2x with plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine 4x over 2. Okay, now, when I go to square this, the plus or minus doesn't matter. Oops, I forgot my plus or minus here. The plus or minus doesn't matter because when you square it, whether it's positive or negative, you square it, it's going to become positive. So when I square it, I also get rid of the square root. The square root and the square undo each other because they're inverses. So when I square both of these, what I'm left with is 1 minus cosine 4x all over 2 times 1 minus cosine 4x all over 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to FOIL. I'm going to multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom. And since I have more than one term in the top, I have to FOIL. So I'm going to do 1 times 1, which is 1. And then I'm going to do 1 times negative cosine 4x, and then 1 times negative cosine 4x again, which gives me negative 2 cosine 4x. And then negative cosine 4x times negative cosine 4x gives me a positive cosine 4x squared. All over, in the denominator, 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to use power reduction to reduce the squared here. And we're going to use this formula right here. So I'm going to replace cosine squared 4x with something using the power reduction. So A in this case, when we use power reduction, my A is going to be 4x. That's my angle. So I'm going to have 1 minus 2 cosine 4x plus, and then when I replace it with my power reduction formula, I'm going to have 1 plus cosine of 8x over 2. Now I get the 8x because if you look at this formula, when you rewrite it, whatever your original angle is, you double it. So my original angle is 4x, that's my angle A, and I'm going to double it to get 8x. And that's all over 4. Okay, now I'm going to clear the complex fraction. So this is pretty much our answer, but we just have to do a little bit of rearranging to simplify this. So I'm going to clear the complex fraction by multiplying everything by 2. So I multiply the 1 by 2, I get a 2. When I multiply the minus 2 cosine 4x by 2, I get minus 4 cosine 4x. When I multiply the 2 by this power reduction identity, I just get 1 plus cosine 8x because the 2's cancel each other. And then I take the 2 times the 4 in the denominator and I get 8. Now I can combine like terms here on the top. So I have a 2 and a 1 I can combine and I get 3 minus 4 cosine 4x plus cosine 8x all over 8. Now in the homework, they ask you to split it in fractions. So we can rewrite it as 3/8 minus 1/2 cosine 4x plus 1/8 cosine 8x. So I just take 3 over 8 minus 4 over 8, which is minus 1/2, and then the 1 next in front of the cosine 8x to get 1/8 cosine 8x. And so this is our final answer, as reduced and simplified as we possibly can get.